Well, I'm in this club, P-Subs, Personal Submersibles.
Okay.
And so we're a group that builds our own submersibles all over the country. You know, actually, there's a couple members that are actually in some other countries, but a lot of the guys are back east, and I'm one of the few that are on the West Coast, actually. And
I don't remember his name. Will. Hold on. Forget his last name.
Is that does this club sound familiar to you?
No, I'm trying to think. A group that was out here doing some tests on one of their little personal submersibles.
Oh, really? Was it Karl Stanley by any chance?
No.
Or, Phil Newton?
No. Phil, actually, our waterfront director, good personal friends with Phil because he came down from Vancouver area.
Yeah, we've done. We have conventions every year, and
Cohen?
Phil Newton?
No. Will Cohen?
I don't know that name, but Phil gave us a tour of his facility, you know, and then we have, like, they try to do conventions every year, and we dove in up in Washington in a lake up there a couple of years ago.
Sounds cool.
This way?
What the name is? It's basically the.
And he had a small submersible.
Right. It was basically a two-person one, a big acrylic sphere. And then the tubes, the ballast tubes at the side, and the initial one had a driver on the back, and then they moved to more.
Yeah, it sounds like the Nemo. There's a Nemo sub that was all acrylic like that.
But they did some trial runs out here.
Wow.
Lorraine. So yeah, actually, in terms of history, the hangar here was built in the late 60s by the Navy when they were doing testing of the Beaver 4 submersible.
Oh, really?
And so that's what the tracks are for. This is the work pit for the submersible, and then they actually had.
But the hyperbaric chamber wasn't here at that time?
No, at that time it wasn't here, but they had a tower off of Blue Cavern where they would do the testing because it was a lockout submersible.
Okay.
They go and hook up to this little compartment, pressurized, equalized pressure, let people off and come back and bring them out. And so it was testing the techniques for the DSRV.
Oh, yeah.
So this is Ralph, who's one of my
Hi.
Volunteer.
Brian, you're on camera here.
Okay. Where are you from?
I'm from Ventura, but I'm with a group called P-Subs, Personal Submersibles, and we're all building submarines independently, small, like 2-person, 3-person submarines, and 1-atmosphere subs. And I'm just over here on my sailboat right now in the Isthmus, and I figured I'd get some video for the group while I'm here.
So,
hi.
Brian, this is Lorraine. Who's
I'm Brian.
Technician.
You're on camera here.
Oh, cool.
It's a video for P-Subs, Personal Submersibles. It's a club where we build our own submarines, and they're mostly 1-atmosphere subs, and they go anywhere from 100 feet to 2,000 feet.
Do you remember the name of the submersible that's tested out here? It was Will.
It was
Cohen or
Sea
Imagine. That's it. Yeah.
Oh, okay. That was the name of the sub?
Yeah, that was the name of the company. Yeah.
I don't know. I'm sure somebody in the club would know.
Yeah, that was a dome.
It was an acrylic, all acrylic?
Right, with a 2-man inside, and then the person, there could be a diver on the back controlling. Or you could control it from the inside. Yeah. I can't remember what that was rated to. I don't think it was hugely deep, but it was pretty good.
Yeah.
They tested it out here, and then they ran commercial for several years in Avalon. Running tours.
Yeah, I've been building mine for the last 10 years or so. And so I just put it, I did some testing about 2 months ago, and I vacuum tested it, and I still got to do some more to it. It's too buoyant right now. It won't go
I know
down.
there's been some clubs or some contests, and I've seen some videos of one-man subs.
Yeah, there's a
like that.
race. They have the one-man race.
Yeah.
Where where they pedal. It's a human-powered sense.
Yeah.
And and there's a guy that is trying to cross the English Channel actually right now in a sub, and it's actually a wooden. It's made out of wood.
Well, then you've seen these drug-running ones, right?
Yeah. Well. Yeah.
They're really more of just a submersible, maybe.
They don't really go underwater. I mean, they're right at the
submerge,
surface.
but
Yeah.
So they're under. So they're.
We're not connected
radar.
with any of those guys.
Right.
Yeah.
So what is the goal then?
Well, just everybody has their own goal pretty much. Just the one of the main subs that everybody builds is a Kittredge sub. That was Captain Kittredge was he was in World War II, and he built in the 60s. He built these little subs. They're pretty familiar. You've probably seen them, but they're a two-man sub, and they typically go to like 350 feet or so.
That's one of the ones like
Could have been.
Gibbons had out here. You
It
remember
might
that?
have been.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Had the little viewing port up top.
Yeah, is he with Brooks Institute?
No, he
No.
was here.
Or-
And then
Oh.
there was Mother Goose,
Oh,
that little sub. We used it for a movie that I
Oh.
worked on.
oh, yeah.
I think it was called Mother Goose. It was yellow. I think it was a one or two man sub.
Well, yeah. I mean, our concern would be if we had to make an emergency escape. Say at 300 or 400 feet. But see, we're at 1 atmosphere, so we
Right.
don't have the
Yeah.
Nitrogen
You have to
buildup
worry
in the
about
blood.
embolism, though.
But yeah, I mean,
Well,
but
only if
Escape
it's
module.
flooded, yeah.
yeah, because I mean that's our escape is to flood, and then we have a hood,
Right.
an escape hood,
Yeah, so similar
and then
to a Momsen lung type of thing.
right. There's a German one that's popular called a
Traeger?
Sinky hood, and but it's just all it is a bubble basically.
Right, but it's going to be compressed air.
Well, I mean we have to flood, and so then all of a sudden we're exposed to the
Compressed air.
a very
Yeah.
high pressure, like maybe 200 psi or so,
Right.
whatever depth we're at.
Right.
And then we have to make an emergency ascent. So we're going to be exposed, we're not going to be exposed very long to any nitrogen
It's
buildup.
not the length, it's the pressure.
So yeah, I mean there's a lot of work that the navies have done with escape from submarines, same sort of thing. I think the record is the British had a free ascent with it was basically an escape jacket that acted as thermal insulation below, flotation at the top, but actually expanded out as you went up from about 600 feet.
Now, so did they need to be decompressed when they came up?
You probably need to, depending on how many breaths you take at that depth and the rapidity of the ascent, because you start looking at some of the free divers who are going down single breath down to 700 feet or so and coming up. They're actually doing decompression stops on the way up.
Wow.
And an attempt at 800 feet, the guy ended up getting very seriously bent, almost dying. So even in those situations, for those depths, 300 feet probably not as much of an issue, but you start getting 600.
So is there's got to be a limit on how, I mean, if you linger down there too long, say if you flood your sub and for some reason or another you can't get out right away, and say you're down there for 10 minutes or so, you're going to have a problem.
Yeah. Plus, your faculties will be such that you probably won't be able to function very well because of narcosis.
Yeah, it'll have HPNS probably too.
Well, not HPNS, because that's with helium.
Yeah, but but nitrogen
definitely
narcosis.
So what would you say the limit would be? Say I mean, obviously the depth is going to make a difference, but say at extreme depth, maybe 300 feet.
So the limit would be, I think the main solution that people have worked up over the years is basically ballast. Dump ballast so you float up.
Right.
Yeah. And stay as close to 1 atmosphere as possible inside. That would be the solution that a lot of submersible.
No, but I mean, if you have to, say you're entangled, see our problem, we're looking at getting entangled and then having to flood the sub and physically escape.
You're asking how long would you...
Well, how long could you linger down there
before you have an issue?
Before you have an issue. I mean, you'd have to go into the dive tables and everything.
Short, because you're getting below regular decompression, and you have to look at like extreme dive tables and things like that.
So if it's 100 feet, not an issue.
Yeah.
200 feet, maybe 10 minutes, but that's sort of max. 5-10 minutes max. But still, that's based on an ascent rate that's anywhere between 30 and 60 feet per minute. You're going to be shooting up much faster than that, and so you've got issues with that. So decompression, once you get deeper than 150 feet, if you start lingering more than 5-10 minutes at that depth, breathing that pressure.
So then the idea would be to make decompression stops along the way up, if you could. I mean, but chances are you might not have the gear to do that.
Basically, the best thing to do is have a support vessel that has a chamber on it.
Right. But now with divers out here, say if a diver gets into trouble, like, they're down at 100 feet for too long of a time, and for some reason they, have a problem. How long do they have to get here on the survey? They got to get over here pretty fast.
So when you're dealing with those depths, normal recreational diving depths, you can get progression, serious neurological progression from deep dives relatively shortly after. And so the longer you wait, the worse the resolution is. But what you're really most concerned about with what type of diving you're looking at, which is very rapid compression, spending a few minutes at that depth, number one, you got to deal with your equalization as you flood your system and make sure you don't blow your eardrums out. Second thing is dealing with the narcosis and being able to function with that pressure. And then the third thing is you're not going up at a controlled ascent rate. You're shooting up basically buoyant, playing Polaris missile.
And the only other way to deal with that would be to have a 1 atmosphere escape pod.
Right. We have a member who just put an escape pod in, and he's the only one, as far as I know, that has one. And so it's definitely an issue. But so you're just exhaling. I mean, when you're shooting up, you're just exhaling the whole time. Because your lungs are just expanding.
Say you're at about 300 feet. 300 feet is about 10 times normal pressure. So that means whatever breath you have in your lungs, by the time you hit the surface, will want to
300 times.
10 times.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things, basically just screaming all the way up, because the air will be expanding and you're able to release it.
The airway open.
But you can also...
What do you mean screaming? Is physically? I mean, is that something that is taught? I mean, is to actually make a sound or something? Or you're going to be screaming anyway, probably.
Right. So, and then the other one.
The airway open is important.
The other one is that if you have one of these hoods,
it's going to be escaping under.
It's going to escape underneath. But also, if you have feel the urge to take a breath in, you can still take a breath in and exhale, but keeping the airway open is the main thing, and not closing mouth or the glottis to prevent air embolism, because that's the things that are going to kill you first. Well, the thing that's going to kill you first is narcosis and not being able to function and drowning.
Yeah, I guess the narcosis, I don't know, what can you do? Not much you can do about that unless you're breathing a mixed gas or something.
Well, then you'd have to have a mixed gas for that depth that you're going to, because you wouldn't want to go pure oxygen, because you'd seize.
Yeah.
So you've got that issue. Then the second one is, if you don't exhale all the way up, you've got the potential for embolism. And then the third one is, if you accumulate a lot of gas down below and hit the surface, now that gas could be coming out of solution in the form of decompression sickness.
I would think at any time that you have an emergency, that once somebody gets to the surface, they would need to be evaluated immediately by a physician.
Now, so with divers out here, I mean, they've got to get over here pretty rapidly within
Right, so you
We have a whole
basically,
EMS.
within
Yeah.
a half an hour or something, or is that
yeah,
too long?
so it depends upon the exposure.
Uh-huh.
So if you've got an extreme exposure, like 300 and some feet for 5 minutes before you did this extraordinarily rapid ascent, then you need to get to a chamber as soon as possible. If you're at 60 feet and have been down for, say, an hour and a half at that pressure and had a rapid ascent to the surface, you still need to go to the chamber, but the seriousness isn't going to be as severe as the shorter exposure at 300 feet.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, it depends upon what depth you're actually exposed to, because that's one of the things with this submarine escape work that the Navy's been doing is if the submarine is disabled and it maintains its integrity, then you don't have to worry about.
You're better to stay
one atmosphere
down there,
and then
than to try to
the problem then
escape.
is that you're dealing with carbon dioxide buildup and other problems like that. But if you then have the ability to get out using an escape hatch, that's just a boom, rapid compression and shoot up. And for that, they have issues with how deep you are, how much pressure is built up in the sub, because you might have to pressurize the sub to keep the water out.
Yeah, this guy's.
And so you're dealing with maybe a day of exposure to a pressure equivalent to 60 feet. And so if they did escape that way, then they'd have to be immediately put in the chamber. And that's what a lot of Navy vessels, submarine escape, or submarine rescue vessels have. They've got these big chambers on board. So even if they go down with something like it's the replacement to the DSRV,
Oh, yeah.
the little capsule that goes
yeah.
down, latches on, and brings people up under pressure.
Personnel transport.
Right. So, but they can transport under pressure and put them in a big chamber up top, and then start decanting people off that way.
Yeah. So then, if something happens around here on the island, the harbor patrol or whoever it is, or lifeguards, they just radio to you guys, and then they come right into here, and then you zoom them up in here. Then,
if they're, if they have very few symptoms, then we can have the doctor tell us what to do, and we have maybe a little more time. But when you've been such a deep exposure, even for a very small amount of time, you're dealing with a huge amount of nitrogen loading, and as Karl says, the nitrogen narcosis and other things that give you a problem that need to be addressed.
yeah,
And especially when you're at 1 atmosphere at 300 feet, now you're essentially breathing almost about 2 atmospheres of oxygen.
And there's a possibility of seizures there too.
yeah, a lot of issues to think about. Well, can we take a look at the chamber here?
Yeah, I got to wander up to the office.
Okay. Thank you.
Well, I'm going to check.
All right.
Find a pair.
Oh. Okay. Should I take my shoes off then?
Yeah, we don't go in with shoes on. Try to keep the amount of dirt and stuff. That might fit.
It brings up a myriad of issues, huh?
Yeah. There's. We have an email list, and we're all constantly going back and forth with all these different issues.
Yeah. Yeah, well, you can get into the UHMS website, and they talk about all kinds of pressure things. That's the Undersea and Hyperbaric Medical Society.
Oh, okay.
You definitely like that.
Watch head.
Okay. Oh man, this is great. Wow.
So we're set up as strictly chamber
Oh, now this is a barrier here then
diving
too.
This here is what we call a lock.
Okay.
So we can put a person in the chamber, interlock, pressurize them, begin the treatment, then the doctor can lock in only as necessary. So we don't want the doctor under pressure all the time,
right,
trying to make medical decisions.
Oh, but he can come in?
He can come in for short time frames.
Oh.
So our maximum treatment for decompression sickness is 60 feet. Our maximum for air embolism is 165, but the doctor's generally not going to go in at 165 unless he goes in to pronounce, and then we are required to do a staged decompression at that depth.
We shut this door in the outside lock. This is the chamber, that's the lock. It acts like an elevator. So
Yeah.
it'll go up and down. This will be shut. This is pressurized, whatever depth we're going to, 60 feet, 30 feet.
And then you can equalize,
They know-
Right.
and they can come
It's like
in.
an airlock, like it's been the space station.
Right, and so then he's not exposed for very long, and he can go
Right.
back out, and then you bring the pressure back down.
And behind you is a med lock where we can,
Oh,
right here,
You can,
oh,
we can
right.
shut this.
you can put non.
Oh, put medicine.
We can put meds,
Oh, yeah.
water and stuff like that.
Uh-huh.
So the patient's always in here with a tender. So the tender hasn't been diving, so they're clean. And then at the end of the treatment, then we do a prophylactic oxygen. So the major thing that's good for the patient is getting them on oxygen, so you're reducing that nitrogen load with the gas differential laws and things like that. So reduce that nitrogen load and get oxygen flooding, so you help reducing any further damage and preventing other damage. The tender being clean, it hasn't been diving.
So the tender's exposed
Yeah, the tender's
then
exposed.
to the pressure.
But the original tables were air only, and so you'd ride out the table as an air only table to reduce the nitrogen load. They found that the oxygen gave better healing and better results and better resolution to symptoms, so that's why they went to oxygen for those same tables.
So then you can elevate the oxygen level in here.
We do that by mask.
Oh.
So this chamber's compressed with plain air.
Oh, okay.
It reduces off fire hazards and things like that.
Oh,
and then
right.
we deliver oxygen by mask.
Oh, yeah, okay. And then this is USC, right?
Yeah, this is part of USC, Wrigley Institute for
And
Environmental
that's a private college, right? And
Yeah.
and then it's been, so you guys have been in existence for quite a while.
Since 1974.
Here?
It was started because one of the researchers was doing underwater physiology on humans. And he was doing it in the water. His advisor was friends with somebody who worked at Lockheed. And Lockheed had a chamber, that's where this came from, that was set up for the supersonic transport research.
This chamber here?
Yeah.
The very same chamber?
This chamber. And so when Europe got the Concorde, the U.S. seemed to just drop the whole project.
Oh, really? Wow.
And it sat there. And so the fellow from Lockheed was friends with the advisor, and we got a chamber. You want a chamber for trying to work? And that's how we got the chamber. So our original director was a physiologist, and he's now gone on to aerospace.